Welcome back to Owl Dragon Adventures. I'm Rob McPherson, and this is my solo review of Isofarian Guard by Sky Kingdom Games. So Isofarian Guard is a campaign game that came out last year, the year before. I believe it was the year before, technically. I got my copy last year because I did not get it on the Kickstarter, but I did end up grabbing it secondhand because I learned that not only it is a campaign game, which I love. If you know, if you've watched the channel, you know that, but also it is a bag building game, which is probably my favorite mechanic out there. Not good at it always, but I really enjoy it. So I picked this up and I started to play through it, and I had to put it away for a little bit because, as you can tell, it is a bit of a sprawling game, so it takes up most of my table. So I put it away to play some other games, and when I was about to take it back out, I learned that there was a Kickstarter coming back out for a 1.5 edition where they were going to do some updates to the game. So I decided to hold off and wait. So I got about halfway through the first campaign. I have since reset now. I have all the new content, which has some new chips, a whole bunch of new cards, and I have started to play through the game again. Some of the things that they added to the game are to streamline things so that get rid of a lot of the grindiness that people were complaining about, which I didn't mind too much. But you do have to, kind of like an MMO, you do sometimes have to just go out and fight monsters for the sake of getting loot and getting experience so that you can level up. I very much enjoy it, but that being said, I am not complaining about streamlining that process either. So the gameplay of Isofarian Guard. So as I said, it is a bag building campaign game, which is quite unique in the field. Usually it's a dice tossing kind of game in campaign games or card playing or something like that. But this, you are drawing chips from your bags, and based off of what you draw, you're able to activate your abilities on your various dashboards that you've got through card-based play. So you would go ahead and take a chip here. This activates it because it takes a sword to activate. It also takes 1 action point, and then I get to add things to the bag. So there's a few different ways that the cards work. They can either add things to either your or your ally's bag, because you are playing as 2 guards traversing this world, so you can build up either of their bags. You can do defense to prepare for enemy attacks, or you can go ahead and attack the enemies and deal damage to them. They've got a card-based system to come back, so it's not bag building on the enemy side, but you flip a card and they use the action points and then they attack you back, sometimes a bit harder than you want them to. So that's the gist of the way that the combat works and the bag building works. What I really love about the bag building is that, as I said, you're adding these chips to the bag in combat based off of the cards, but if you don't draw them before the end of combat, you don't empty out your bag and start fresh each time. They stay with you to the next combat. So there's sometimes at an end of a combat that I'm like, all right, well, I can kill this bad guy right away. But if I take this turn and I add these 4 chips to the bag before I kill him with my other guard, then I'm going to be in a better state to fight the next one. So there's a lot of long-term planning throughout this. So I really enjoy just the way that it all flows together, and it doesn't feel like too much like you're just fighting like little encapsulated battles. It really feels like you're exploring an entire world, more of an adventure. So very much enjoying that part of it. Accessibility. I find the game to be quite accessible. There's a few little points that are hard to grok at first. I'd say the hardest thing for me to understand at first was the mechanics of one of the new systems that they put into play, which is the puzzle quests. So these puzzle quests, you play them out in one of the quest books. You've got these grids that you're going to lay chips down onto, and then you're going to slide them around in order to accomplish a goal. Once you see how it works, it's not a big deal at all, but there's no real walkthrough in terms of getting you going on the first one. So I had to make sure I was playing a few things correctly. I had to look up online. So that could have been a little bit clearer. But the gameplay itself is really quite simple, and the rulebook, they've got it set up where, in fact, the first chapter of the first campaign, they're really just walking you through each of the steps. So this is how combat works. This is how exploration works. You start with just 1 guard, and then you get a 2nd guard, so that you're working on, the synergies This guard here, Grigory, actually has a slightly different play style than Alec here. Grigory, every time you play on one of his cards, a chip on his cards, at the end of his turn, it flips over, and it's indicated by an icon up here. Whereas Alec, you need to use another one of his cards to flip over some of his cards. So there is still the flipping mechanic, but it works a little bit differently. But again, they walk you through everything within the context of the campaign, and it doesn't feel like I'm just sitting here and reading a rule book. There's a lot of game here, don't get me wrong. So if you are intimidated by large games, I think you're going to find this one to be less accessible for you. But for me, who has played a lot of campaign games and really loves the bag building genre in general, I found this game to be really, really easily accessible, and I was able to hop right in. And when I picked it up again after a year of not playing, it only took me a couple of looks at the rulebook to be like, oh yeah, that's how that works. So I find it to be an extremely accessible game. The design of the game. So there's a lot here. I think the design is really well done. So the dashboards are laid out really well. You've got the, whatever enemy you're fighting, you've got their deck, their discard, you've got their stats here. It's really quite simple in terms of it. There's not too much to it. You'll notice here that I do have some 3D printed dashboards for my guards here. I decided to do that just this past weekend because the dashboards that they give you, they're beautiful, but they're about twice as big as this over all said and done. So I decided to 3D print some out I found online just to shrink it down. I was able to shrink my play up into the table itself. I don't have to use my extended table here, which was nice. So I think the design is really well done. We've got the map here, which is literally just a map for exploring. You don't need the neoprene, but I'm me, so of course I have the neoprene. I think that all of the artwork is really, really nice. So you can see, let me see if I can get this without too much glare. So each of the cards is really well illustrated, and they're, on both sides, different artwork. And you have a ton of cards, and all the enemy cards are illustrated just as beautifully. I think everything works really, really well together. The quality of the game is fantastic. So the only gripe that I have in the terms of the quality is going to be the cards themselves are just standard cards. They're nice thick cardstock, but they're not the linen cards that I tend to like. Minor gripe for the cards that I'm interacting with a lot, which is these the skill cards. I do sleeve those because I'm picking them up and putting them down constantly during combat, especially the ones that flip every single round that you use them. I decided against sleeving all of the enemy cards and everything because there are several hundred of them, and I just didn't want to take that time. That being said, they do have room in the box so that you can actually sleeve all of your cards and you still have enough storage, which is a really, really good touch. The chips are amazing. So if you're familiar with chip theory games, they use the same chips that they've used, and they have great screen printing on them, or not screen printing, stickers on them, excuse me. And they've got a nice weight to them. I don't think they're quite as heavy as the chip theory ones, although I do think they are magnetic. But anyways, so they feel really solid. I'll sit here as I'm doing tactics and just kind of like play with them a little bit. So they're nice for tactile, and they work really well in a bag draw setting, which is nice, especially since the whole game is surrounding that. So you get this bag and you get to reach in and you get the nice click clack. So if you've got the same tactile stuff that sensory stuff that I do, it's really good for that. All of the notebooks, all of the journals that you use throughout the game for the different markets, for the different quests, the narratives, those are all spiral bound, beautifully done. You can, you're not worrying about folding them open and leaving them open. They just swing back, which is really nice. So I've got the market one here. So this is all the different markets in the city. They did in the second edition here, or the 1.5 edition, they broke out a bunch more of the rules into various books, which I like, so I can keep things separate, and it's easier to find things now. So I think they did a great job. The box. So the box is, it's big. I'll show you a picture of it here. So it arrived, it was the 38-pound package, and sometimes board game companies exaggerate how much things weigh just to make sure they're getting, their postage and everything. No, this is a 38-pound box. I've removed the lid of it and I've set it off to the side, and I just have the game box sitting face open so that I can slide components in and out when I do want to play, so I don't have to lift this game because it's a behemoth and it's going to live on that shelf. And if eventually I do decide to sell it, it's going to have to be local. It's a massive game. I think they designed the insert really well, though. There's a bunch of different boxes in it that have the different components, keeps it really well organized, really easy to set up. You just grab a box out, you open it up, and you lay out the components, and then you can put that one away and move on to the next bit. So I think they did a really good job with the design. Value of this game. I mean, I'm getting my value's worth for sure. It's an expensive game. I think that it goes for, it's a little bit hard to tell because secondary market and everything. I'm trying to remember what I paid for it. I think I paid somewhere in the order of like for everything like $230. But that was with the neoprene map, which I don't regret, even though it's really not necessary because it's just your exploration map, but it's beautiful. If you're going to play a large campaign, it's worth it. You're going to get your money's worth because there's a lot of content here. In fact, one of my favorite things about it is that it's actually 5 campaigns you're playing through, not just one. So you play through 5 different campaigns. There's 8 different guards you play with, 2 in each campaign. And then I think the last one you get to choose which 2 you use. Don't quote me on that. I'm trying to keep myself spoiler free, so I'm not exactly sure. But regardless, there's a lot of gameplay here, and I like that it's broken into the different campaigns because when I'm finished with one, I feel like I've accomplished something. I get that dopamine hit, and I can move on to the next one at my leisure. So I'm pushing through the first campaign right now. Can't wait to see how it ends. Can't wait to get past this first boss again because he has defeated me twice, which if I remember correctly from my first playthrough, he did there as well. So I guess it's back to the grinding to get some more experience and some more equipment so I can go and beat him. So that'll be coming up. I think that Isofarian Guard is fantastic. I really like my campaign games. I came at this hobby from D&D, so that's my background. So I really like the narrative stories. They did a great job. They added in a foreteller tie-in so that you can get the fully narrated journey. So like when I'm setting up for the next section, I've got the narration going, which really brings you into the world. The bag building is really, really good. A mix between instantaneous rewards for that single combat and the ability to prep for future combats. The downside is that the enemies can use that against you and start putting chips in your bag that will follow you throughout future combats. But there are mitigation effects as well. If you are looking for that kind of MMORPG feel on your game table and you really like the luck that is bag draw, but not necessarily the chaotic luck that is dice, I really recommend Isofarian Guard. This is my favorite campaign game that I have played to date. The story is really good. The magic in the world is really cool. The components are great. It's just got a great feel. And for me, this is a 10 out of 10, which I don't give lightly. I just really think that they knocked this one out of the park. I am having a blast with this one. I can't wait to play through the entire campaign. I don't see this one leaving my collection anytime in the future. If for no other reason than I would need a forklift to get it out of here. But so if you're looking for a really good, meaty campaign game that just kind of checks off all the boxes along the way, tactics, strategy, fun, narration, great story, then I can't recommend Isofarian Guard enough. So let me know in the comments below. Have you picked up Isofarian Guard? Are you playing through it? Have you already finished it? Am I just that far behind you at this point because I don't have enough time to just sit and play for hours on end as I would love to? Are there any other campaign games that you think I should pick up and try? So we always want to hear back from you, so please do leave those comments down below. As always, do like and subscribe to the video if you like what you are seeing. And as always, thank you for joining us on our board game adventures.